You might be wondering if they've replaced us with AI bots, but no, I'm happy to report I think I'm still the real Caleb, and I'm excited to be joined today by, I hope, the real Wade and the real Orion. Can you guys
I'm
confirm?
real, baby. Woo!
All right, perfect. So, well, here's the thing. We've been talking about AI for well over a year, and it's still the dominating conversation point, and not just the channel, but also popular culture as well. I've been watching a ton of Olympics coverage, and it feels like every other ad right now is about AI. And I guess a question I had for both of you, just to get your perspective, does the general perception of AI have kind of an impact on the channel at all?
I mean, yeah, I would say yes. I was just talking to a solution provider last week and asking, AI now means so many different things to so many people. It's this huge umbrella term. Is that, and I asked if he wishes that we got more nuance, between Gen AI and automation. And I mean, his kind of attitude was it helps everything, anything to get back in conversation with customers about what their problem is that they're trying to solve, and then here's the solution for it. Customers, I think there's been this trend where they really don't want to know, or they want to know less about the technology and the steps to getting to a solution, and they just want a solution to their problem. So yeah, anything to dazzle customers, anything to get them excited about new technology opens up that chance that maybe they're willing to pull the trigger on a new project with solution providers. So I think it's been a net positive.
Yeah, I'd say
Ryan, go ahead,
I totally agree with Wade. It's a huge positive. Anytime a channel partner can get in front of a customer and say, "Hey, we have something new that could help your productivity. We have something that's going to improve your bottom line. We have something that's going to improve profitability for both of us." That's huge. The question is whether or not I can actually do those things, and that's the big question, because if you look at AI, it's always been it doesn't make any promises that technology hasn't already made. Technology has always been about, let's make it faster, let's make it simpler, let's get all the unnecessary stuff out of the way and just get people doing what we want them to do, the high value stuff that, it's always been the mantra is you get rid of the low value work, and technology helps people do higher value work, and then the technology takes care of the lower value work. I think we've been seeing that in the channel for a long time. And if you look at people who are doing AI in the channel and they're doing it really well, they've been doing it for about 10 years. And there are people like, there's folks like, Crushbank is an example of somebody who's been using ticketing systems and ticketing information, and they create these bespoke answer machines for MSPs. And that's one example. There's a ton of folks who've been doing AI in a really mature fashion, but it's not sort of the slick, sophisticated stuff that you see from ChatGPT. One of the problems is that folks on the ChatGPT side is that folks kind of expect things to look really flashy and really, really nice, and they expect that to also carry over. And then they get their statements at the end of the quarter, and they're like, "Oh, we've made $1 million." All these kind of outcomes are just going to be just as sophisticated and just as advanced, and it's just not. It's a mess. And if you haven't been doing AI for a long time, you're in the same mess that everybody was, pretty much a year ago.
So in your opinion, Orion, like seeing all this now, actually this changes a little bit the direction maybe I wanted to ask this, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is this an accurate way? Is AI really an accurate way of describing this technology to people? Because I think a lot of folks, at least for me, when you think about AI, I think about like iRobot, right? And I think about these, these thinking, living machine kind of type things in programs and applications, but like that's not really what this is. So I guess what's maybe the next step for these businesses and companies that you're seeing, right, in terms of defining all this stuff?
I look at Gen AI as an Excel folder. It's just got a lot of cells, and it goes A1 and it fills in that cell, and then it goes A2 and it fills in that cell, and so it gives you the highest probability in these cells. It's like, how long do we want there's 2,000, and so it does its best. That's what it does, and but it's not science. I mean, it is science, but it's not a thinking. It's just a probability. It's a slot machine. It's a slot machine. You pull the lever and you get ding, 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 ding. Sometimes you get all sevens. Sometimes you get a what's the word when you don't get a jackpot? It's a bust, right? You get a bust. Yeah. So I mean, and that's been the excitement and the drawback of AI is people are like, oh my gosh, you can get these really things, and then it's like, oh yeah, but you can also get some really crazy things. But that's me.
I think you always have to have a discerning look at whatever outcomes when it comes to generative AI, especially. You always have to have a discerning like look into, hey, what was this outcome that was provided to me? Because like you're saying, I mean, you can get pretty big, pretty awesome results, right? I know anecdotally for me, I've talked to a number of people about projects that would have taken them much longer. I was talking to my wife actually about a project that she was doing the other day, and she put in a bunch of information into Copilot, was like, hey, I need to get through this project. The project was going to take her probably about eight hours to do. But when she put in that information, it was the right kind of information, the right kind of stuff that, what it spit back out to her in terms of helping her, sort through a lot of these results that she was trying to get. She was trying to analyze herself. It took that project from 8 hours of work down to 3 hours of work. And I think that's a huge, it's stuff like that you can look at and see, hey, there are some really definable results from this technology. But I think you're right, Orion. You got to be careful with it still, because sometimes it can spit out stuff that's not always 100%. You have to have that human eye to it, right?
Yeah. Wade, I think Wade, covering Microsoft has some really good examples of some of the productivity results that they can achieve, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of the early stuff we're seeing from Microsoft partners, which is the world I'm usually covering for CRN. I'm thinking of one solution provider who told me about an app he's building for, a surgeon's office where, surgery, right? If a client misses an appointment, it's a huge cost to the surgeon. So this thing is not only going to better predict when someone can come in to do the surgery based on their past results, but it also wants to add in that automation side, right? And take the time required to book an appointment down. I believe you said from 8 minutes down to 2, and you extrapolate that over every patient that this doctor has. That's some real savings. And yeah, getting back to the point about
way better patient outcomes.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, sorry to interrupt, but I'm like,
No,
I was
no,
just
yeah,
sitting in a
sure.
doctor's office recently, and it's like, if I could get, if the doctor's taking way less time to write that stuff down, that means I get seen faster too, right? So
Yeah, I think with AI, a lot of a common thing I keep hearing from solution providers is they see this as a new save as, a new spell check. It's just going to be a new way of how we do our work. And Caleb, the story you told was totally accurate. I'm thinking of the legal space where lawyers have to cull through so much data. I'm thinking of cybersecurity professionals that have to look at just volumes and volumes of signals to try to figure out if there's an anomaly. I mean, I think eventually once this is mainstream and fully penetrated, or more penetrated, we'll be looking back and saying, how did we do this stuff manually? That, I think, is why we're seeing so many solution providers invest in this, and definitely so many vendors invest in this. And I think Orion might have a point to that.
No. I think what Wade said there is, like, we're going to be looking back on this, sort of like reporters look back on the days before Google. Like, I remember being a reporter before Google. I didn't have a lot of time before there was, not that I was a reporter before Google existed, but before we all started using it. And it's like, how the hell did you do this? Like, how did anybody, like, talking to old reporters, like, wait, you used to actually just have to drive down to North Carolina to talk to somebody because you couldn't find them? Like, all you had was an address? I mean, it's like there's some real, Wade's 100% right about, we're going to look back and go, how did you interpret, like, what he said about, endpoint detection, signal, like, cybersecurity? This is a huge win for those sort of applications. I covered Dell, and one of the things that they work with an institution in Texas, and they managed to take, they have a way now to read X-rays with AI that just saves tons of time. They can train a model on that. I'll leave that there. There's something I'd like to get to about how smaller models are kind of superior to larger models. It seems kind of counterintuitive, but if we don't have time,
I think that's interesting. I mean, go ahead, Wade.
I was going to say Microsoft and IBM both have started pitching their small model offerings because it's early days, and we're still figuring out. We talked a lot about the unknowns of accuracy. I think the cost of AI is still a huge unknown, and people are still burned about their cloud bills, right? Like, they just didn't understand, or maybe just didn't. People have been caught off guard by consumption, and so I I think a lot of solution providers are hopeful that the vendors have learned lessons from angry customers over cloud bills. What's the AI bill going to look like? We're seeing this in Microsoft too. They're trying a ton of different business models. You've got per seat, you've got consumption based. I mean, it's to take a COVID era phrase, we're all part of the experiment, right? Of AI landing and how we're actually gonna consume it, for better or for worse. And something you said, Orion, earlier made me think about how I've heard from a lot of solution providers that selling Copilot, this probably more than ever is they go to the CEO, they go to the chief marketing officer. This they try to bypass IT for better or worse. Maybe you have some thoughts around that, Orion. But right, the application side of this is actually getting them into a customer or expanding their spend across a customer, because there are a lot of positions where writing is not their strong suit, so they are turning to Copilot for that first draft of an email. IT might be turning to Copilot for that draft of a report. I have a family member who teaches auto shop and has been encouraging his students to just use Gen AI to write up their reports.
I mean, I think Wade hit it. When he said they're bypassing IT, like the vendors who want to sell generative AI that I have seen in my experience, they're bypassing your IT department. They're going straight to the leaders. They're selling this as the ultimate productivity solution. This is going to save your business. Your employees aren't going to have to write. And it's really top down. So the reason I mentioned Crushbank earlier is I used to sell Crushbank, right? And I know a lot about them. And the real trouble with users and AI is that if the users don't like it, they don't use it. And so there's an adoption issue, and you have this kind of push and pull, right? There's the company can make people use it, but then the people will just leave the company, and the people, and so if there isn't a real platform for users to land on and go, okay, this makes my life better, and it's really clear how this works, and it's really, wow, I save so much time, this is amazing, that users aren't going to use it. So what happens is bosses spend a lot of money on these applications and platforms with the vendor. They bring it to the user goes, this doesn't work. And the boss it's a rare boss that goes back to the vendor and goes, hey, my employees all suck, so I'm firing them and we're going to replace them with you. No, most of the time they go, okay, we're firing the vendor. They're not going to fire 5 employees. They're going to fire the vendor, and they'll find another solution to try, and it just didn't work out for us. That's what you see a lot that I've seen a lot with folks who use AI and implement AI on the end user level. So coming top down it's risky, man. But it's like, Wade, why do you think folks are coming top down? Why do you think this is being pushed from top down?
I mean, the whole rollout of this thing has been, we'll get studied, because I mean, we were all, together over that Thanksgiving when ChatGPT became generally available. And so, sometimes it feels like OpenAI and Microsoft are willing a market into existence. And, in that situation, we had non-technical people get exposed to, wow, this is what Gen AI can do for me, and start thinking about all the different ways to apply it to their business. And it reminds me a little bit of the low code, no code movement, rollout, whatever you want to call it. But I know IT get frustrated with that, because some of the apps these things turn out are nasty on the back end, right? So you're speaking to, and we've been speaking a lot to the issues around accuracy, issues around spend. I mean, it's early days, and this is kind of the irony of workplace technology, right? It's technology, it should be cutting edge, but workplaces are only going to be so risky. So it's fascinating to see that everyone who wanted to got to play with this, and they're seeing their competitors possibly roll it out. Does that get them jealous, right? And wanting to not wanting to get left behind, wanting to stay ahead of the curve, but not wanting to roll out the chat bot that then gives a bunch of refunds to your customers and wrecks your business, right? When you trained it not to do that. Some of these like terrible examples of Gen AI in production.
Right.
So it's a crazy time. It's a tough time, but that's why I say we're all part of the experiment. And I think that's what in my experience, the vendors have been saying, like the sales strategy is to just try to meet your customer where they are. For some people that have some people have totally dismissed AI. I'm thinking of one Microsoft security partner who has just said, we are telling our customers we do not recommend it. It's just not secure yet. We don't want to upsell you a license just so that you can get data labeling. So there's definitely a tranche of the partner ecosystem that are not part of this. There's a group of AI curious customers that maybe the solution provider is now able to sell them on. Well, remember that, remember how we talked about data labeling and data sensitivity? If you're moving toward AI, let's start to do this. Remember how we talked about these types of sales that maybe before AI there was no reason a customer would actually pull the trigger on this, and now that they've seen GPT, they've seen the commercials over the Olympics, they're like, okay, I'm curious. Maybe now you're getting me ready to spend the money. There's also been a movement of customers moving money from different projects into AI. I think that's been coming up a lot, especially in the consulting space where, it's unclear. Are people getting net new business from AI? Is it just coming from a different project? So even the financial windfall from AI is like, is it a windfall or is it just people reprioritizing things? Yeah, so I think just, there's still a lot of questions. We're still seeing a lot of gimmicky use cases too, the writing of emails. I mean, yeah, I know some people are dazzled by it, but it's probably gimmicky compared to down the road, these like, the new save as, just these AI capabilities that in the future we won't even blink about seeing it there, and we'll wonder how we lived without it beforehand. Those are still coming. Even in IT world, I think one of the most fascinating use cases is taking legacy coding languages and just transforming them into modern languages super fast, right? Getting, maybe finally getting people off mainframe. Yeah.
I think we're going to have to wrap up pretty soon here, but I guess in a nutshell, where do you feel like you're seeing the solution providers making the most headway in delivering AI? Where are they actually seeing success in selling this stuff? Just in a real quick format here.
I was going to say, I mean, Orion's really hitting it. I'm hearing a lot of success with people selling this into marketing departments, selling it to the CEO. But I mean, I think there are some IT, the IT departments. Some are encouraged by things like GitHub Copilot, right, where you can really quickly write lines of code. I think some people have found use in that, speeding up their workflow. And then there are some who have written it off because, some people ask, like, me as a writer, oh, do I like to use ChatGPT for a first draft of something? And I say absolutely not, because it takes way longer for me to go through writing and then edit it. I could have just written it right in the first place. I'm sure there's some programmers that feel the same way. But then there are some people who might like that first draft and, the idea ideation phase. So to your question, Caleb, I think solution providers are finding a variety of ways to make the sale into customers, and their success is coming from finding that kind of one champion employee who's super into it. They already have use cases in mind. I think the vendors have taken a lot of steps to set the solution providers up for setting up small environments, small use cases, and from there kind of go out as it's proven, oh, this helped me with my emails, oh, this helped me with my coding. Starting really small and then expanding into a department, then maybe move into another department within the same customer.
I think the partner opportunity. Thanks, Wade, because that gave me a chance to actually come up with an answer. But
I like
to me, the partner. No, it was great. To me, the partner opportunity is not so much in the like, hey, I've got this AI product that I can sell you or sell through. It's still on the back end. It's still hey, let's get you ready for AI. Hey, let's how's your data? Where is your data? How clean is it? Let's talk about your storage needs. Let's talk about your networking. Let's talk about your servers. Do you need on-prem? Do you need colo? Because if you're, when you look at some of the exposure to legal liability that products like OpenAI, Anthropology, all the big models, and this kind of goes back to the big versus small model. Folks are like, okay, like that, like I think even in publishing, people are looking at OpenAI and say, okay, like that's really cool. We don't want to use that yet, for X, Y, and Z because we're afraid that if we do, we could get caught in a lawsuit. This is something that happened with Reuters a few years ago. It's back in the 2010s. There was a lawsuit came down and said basically you can't just rip off these photographers and use their material everywhere without paying them. You have to pay them, and so there was a Reuters, AP, a whole bunch of folks. There was a class action lawsuit. Don't quote me on the details, but it's an example of you can't just grab things, use them, and then not pay the people that created them. And I think that's the real advantage of small local models is you're using your own data. You don't have to go outside so you don't have to worry about GDPR compliance. You don't have to worry about HIPAA compliance, legal compliance. You use your own data on site, on-prem, but that requires a big spend, and it also requires some people who really, really know what they're doing with this stuff if you want to do it. So the consultation space, the infrastructure space, to me is still that's still the hot commodity right now, because I don't think we've seen like the real killer app yet. Like Microsoft Copilot's doing some really cool things, and there's a lot of folks that are, but we haven't seen that real killer app yet. That's making people go, okay, this is the thing that's AI. And like Wade said, I mean, it's going to be across the market. There's going to,
I think a good important point to bring up is everyone might have their own killer app, right? That will be their differentiator. And these are long engagements. So for the solution providers, it might be eventually I've been asking solution providers about repeatability of their AI solutions, right? How much custom work goes into getting these things to a good state for a customer, and these are all going to require a lot of custom work so that like you're saying, Orion, the customer has either gotten rid of the liability of using a much more general AI that might be taking copywritten material, plus achieving that differentiator of, well, we've used our data to get these insights, so you cannot get what our AI is producing from a competitor. So that's going to be
accuracy. The accuracy of those. What Wade just said there is so key, because if you're not going out to the big models, you have a much lower chance of getting those bad results. Of when you pull the lever, you're going to have more jackpots as opposed to busts.
But to get there, solution providers are going to need to do a lot of work, probably with their clients, with everybody right now, just to set themselves up for success in the future, right? It seems like there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done. It's like, hey, like you're saying, the best is still yet to come, right, Orion?
Best is conditional, but yeah, I mean, the interesting, the big interesting things are still yet to come, I think, with AI.
Perfect. I think that's a great place to leave it then. I feel like, as always, you have to connect the solution to the actual business outcome in order to have success. And I think that's what we're starting to see across the board all the way. So, hey, Wade, Orion, thank you so much for joining me today just to chat a little bit about AI. I hope we get to check in the future about this, because, I mean, there's about 17 other things we could have talked about today, right?
Yeah, we could have kept going for an hour, I'm sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Hey, thank you for watching as well. If you want to continue to watch some of our AI coverage, make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube if you're watching here, and also go check out our AI in Action newsroom as well. And we will catch you next time.